Hello there, welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be looking at the Tekken movie, made back in 2009, directed by Dwight and starring Jon Foo. These big execs, these people in charge, these big production companies, and just the powers that be when it comes to filmmaking, they never learn, do they? Sometimes they just do not have a clue. They do not have a clue, and Tekken movie is a prime example of what I feel is a bit of a wasted opportunity. I'm not saying the film is terrible. I'm not saying it's god awful, but I don't think it's that great personally. I think it's a bit of a wasted opportunity. I mean, you only need to look at like the director. Again, it's nothing personal against these people, but his previous credits, like one of them includes Free Willy too. So at what point did like the people go, now that is the guy we want for the Tekken movie? You know that big, huge video game franchise that was clearing up on the PlayStation that kids love and has been huge for about 15 years. Let's get the director of Free Willy 2 to direct the Tekken movie. It's like, in what universe does that make sense? But I say we'll just be getting into the Tekken movie today. What I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. I mean, like I say, it's not terrible, but believe me, I don't think it's that great. I mean, Tekken at this point was about 15 years old. It was about, because Tekken came out around 94. I think it was in the arcades in 94. Was on home computers like the PlayStation in 95. So they've had 15 years roughly to 14 15 years roughly to draft and plan a Tekken movie. And when you just think this is the best you can do with all the script writers and people like that in the film industry, this is the best thing that could work. This is the best you could come up with. And like I say, it was just underwhelming for me. It was just very sort of, being such a lover and fan of Tekken, I just thought, like sometimes, like I say, sometimes they just don't get it. They just do not understand. They just see money, cash. Let's make that into a film. Let's let the money roll in. But sometimes the old saying of striking while the iron's hot is very relevant. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but if you look at, say, like the Street Fighter movie back in the 90s, the Mortal Kombat movie back in the 90s, even Double Dragon got a movie. Street Fighter had only been out 2 or 3 years, got a movie. Mortal Kombat, 2 or 3 years, got a movie. And Tekken really should have had a film in the late 90s. It really should have had a film that, like, around that time. Solely because it would have just made a lot more sense rather than waiting 15 years. Because kids that grew up with Tekken, like if you were 12 years old when you were playing Tekken, if you've got to wait 15 years for like another, like a Tekken movie, so if you're about 12, 13 years old, you're going to be in like your late 20s by the time when this film come out. So the original fan base of Tekken, young kids and that, they may have moved on. They've gone on to different things. They're working, they're parents now. So I know Tekken has always been huge. I know Tekken is still huge to this very day. But growing up with it like myself, especially Tekken 1 to 3, Tekken 2 especially, just to me is one of the best video game sequels of all time. Not just regards to beat 'em ups, just video games in general. Tekken 2 to me is absolutely just an amazing video game. Tekken 3 as well, but Tekken 2 especially for the leap that it made from like Tekken 1. Everything about it is just the music, the characters, the animation, the stages. Everything is just so much better than Tekken 2, and I just think it's such an amazing sequel. Even to this day, it's still one of my favourite video games of all time. Used to play it religiously, non-stop, absolutely adored that game. So I'm speaking as a Tekken fan, and while I'm not necessarily a Tekken die-hard fan, Tekken was obviously something I do care about and was passionate about. And this to me, like I mentioned, was just a wasted opportunity. It was just a sort of a, yeah, it's all right kind of film. It wasn't, to me, it didn't. I know there's people out there who say that love this film, but to me it was just, So as I say, it should have been made in the late 90s, the Tekken movie. They should have really, because as I say, you had Tekken, and at this point, when this was made, this is 2009, so Tekken 5 was out. Tekken 6, I think, was nearly out, or around out. I'm not sure when actually, I can't remember when Tekken 6 was actually released, but they had all this time, they had all these video games and all this like source material and this, I know, and you just think that's the best you can do. That's the best you can do. But we'll be getting into Tekken today and just what I thought about it, what worked, what didn't work. So the basic premise of this, there's like this mega war, this global war, and there's like these 8 mega corporations that are remaining. One of them is Tekken, which is like the biggest, strongest one. And Tekken, like, they have this they run this sort of martial arts tournament called King of Iron Fist. So that's right, they're getting that right with the games to sort of control the masses, or sort of control the population, or something along them lines, something like that. Winner gets, you know, the prestige, the money, that kind of thing. It's just, that's basically the premise. And so things that stood out for me, like, if very new metal soundtrack is what, like, with this film. So if you're not into new metal, you're probably not going to enjoy this film. Very of the time. I say of the time, I mean, like I say, new metal was like big in like 90s with things like Limp Bizkit and things like that. So very new metal soundtrack. Jon Foo in this, although, and again, no disrespect to the guy, nothing against Jon Foo, he just isn't Jin. I don't think he's strong enough to be Jin. I don't think he is. He just does, like I say, I just think he's just not Jin Kazama to me. He is not Jin at all. I think he's just a bit too weak to play. And again, I know he's a very talented guy. I know, you know, nothing against Jon Foo, as I say, but to me, he's just not Jin Kazama. And he works as like a contraband runner. He's like, him and his mum are sort of struggling, so he's sort of smuggling food, and they're living in the Anvil, which is sort of outside Tekken City. And I can't stress enough, it's not me dissing somebody, it's just I'm talking about in regards to the film itself. And to me, like I say, he's just not Jin. He's just not Jin. And he wants to enter the Iron Fist tournament. His mum, Jun Kazama, which, you know, they got that right. Jun is Jin's mum, that's right. That's, you know, in relation to the games. She gets killed by the Mishima Corporation, or Mishima, however you want to say it. She gets killed by them, and he's like, right, you're going to pay for this, I'm going to make you pay. He keeps on wanting to enter the Iron Fist tournament. His mum won't let him. She's like, no, it's too dangerous, that kind of thing. She gets killed by them. He's like, right, you're going to pay. So he enters the tournament. So he gets what he wants. You know, in a horrible way, he got there, but he does get what he wants in the end because he wanted to enter the tournament. He's lost his mum, I know, but he gets in the tournament. And then basically meets Luke Goss, who's from Bros fame, obviously, and most famous for being in Hellboy 2, Blade 2. And he plays like Steve Fox, and Steve Fox doesn't really do much in this film. Steve Fox is basically just sort of his mentor. He's sort of like Mickey to Jin's Rocky. He just, like I say, works as a mentor in this. Kerry Tagawa, obviously from Mortal Kombat fame, Shang Tsung plays Heihachi, and everybody knew he was a huge deal in Mortal Kombat, so they think, I think the producers thought, well, let's get him in this as well. You know, like they did with Robin Shou in Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li. It's like, well, kids, if they saw Mortal Kombat and Kerry Tagawa in that, they'll probably love him in this, you know, like in these other films. It's like, yeah, that was about 14 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, people have moved on since then. Kerry Tagawa, again, does all he can with what's offered to him. I mean, the first thing you see martial law in this, right? One of my favourite Tekken characters. He's sort of like the Bruce Lee, the Tekken version of Bruce Lee. And he's based on, and here he's just represented as like an average cage fighter. Like, there's no element that this is martial law at all. It's just him in a cage. You don't see any, like, even like some of the martial law noise, like the Bruce Lee-esque noises that he does in the video game. Not there. He's just a standard average cage fighter. This is martial law, one of the most beloved Tekken characters of all time. He's just treated like and it's like, he's there, there's martial law, kids. Right? Okay, cool. Gary Daniels is in this as Brian Fury, who I mainly remember as the villain in City Hunter and in the live adaptation of Fist of the North Star. I mean, the film works as like a tournament movie in much the same sense as, say, something like the Bloodsport does. You know, it does work in that regard. So the fights do come thick and fast. You know, you don't have to wait long for the next encounter, the next battle between two characters. But it always seems to me, like with this kind of film, all the characters are there just to be there, if that makes sense. I mean, fight sequences are fine. They're all good, all good. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the choreography and the way it's shot and that kind of thing. But when there is no context and it's just one after the other, like Yoshimitsu versus Nina, blah, 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 it loses all meaning when these people are meant to be representing like beloved characters from an enormous video game franchise. When it's just sort of, there's Thingy, there's that person, have a fight. These are like beloved characters that have been around for so long at this point, 15, 14 years. And like Eddie Gordeau, there's Eddie. Right, okay, cool. And it's just so you can say, oh, it's Eddie Gordeau. Like for 3 or 4 minutes, has a fight, and then that's it. There's no context. You don't get to know anybody. All these characters. I mean, in something like I say, Bloodsport and any other tournament, you don't know these characters anyway, so you've got no reference material. In this, if you've played a Tekken game or you've seen, you follow some of the story of Tekken, or you've like watched the characters' endings or know a bit about their biography, you want to learn a bit more. You want to see a bit of their personality on screen, not just fighting. You want to see them acting. You want to see these people come like I say, these beloved characters. You want to exactly see them, how they're represented on screen, not just having a fight. I know it's a beat 'em up game and you want to fight in movie, but I wanted some personality, some context, not just right Yoshimitsu versus so and so, Eddie Gordo versus so and so, Jin, have a go at martial law, and that's it. They're just there by name only. And they do look the part sometimes, but it's just like they're there just for being there. The whole film plays more like an MMA film. While there's nothing wrong with that, at all. And I know it was going to be a tournament movie because Tekken is, like I say, King of Iron Fist tournament. But it just seems like sometimes it just loses all context when, like I say, you want to get to know these characters. Kerry Tagawa, Luke Goss, they all try their best in this. They're really doing the best they can with what they're given. And I will say, like I said, there are a lot of good little things with that. I think Ian Anthony Dale as Kazuya is really good. I think he's really good as Kazuya. Why he doesn't necessarily look exactly how you'd imagine Kazuya to look, or Kazuya. I think he does the part really well. I think he was the one character that actually stood out for me in this. You had that sort of. They do touch on sort of the rivalry between Heihachi and Kazuya. That is sort of there. Kazuya wanting control, that father-son thing, and like I say, you got Jin, and they do make a point that Kazuya is Jin's dad. So they do get that right. That is obviously based like true on the game, so they do get that right. And then, like I say, it's just then they get something right, and then they'll have a scene where this whole dance club scene where Jin and Chrissy break out and go clubbing. Why do we need to see that? I understand, okay, it's character development, that whatever, but I don't want to see Jin and Chrissy going clubbing and just getting it on and that kind of thing. I just want to watch a Tekken movie. It's just a shame, like I say, with the Kazuya thing, they touch on things about the game, but they don't expand on them. That's the big shame. That's what I mean about this film being so underwhelming. It's just like you think if you'd have just expanded that a bit more, just followed that through a bit more, it would have added a little bit more to the film. I'm just trying to think. Oh, another thing, they keep going on about like Jin's style. Like, I've never seen anybody fight like that before. I've never, your style is so unique. And visually, it looks no different to any other style that's in the film. Like, you don't look at his style and go, oh my god, that's so different to what everybody else is doing. It just looks like generic fight sequences. And like I say, while there's nothing wrong with the fighting in this film, after a while, like I say, an hour of so-and-so versus so-and-so, you get a bit, okay, another fight. And a tournament film is good, but you have to break it up a bit. You have to like slow the pace down. You have to change things up a bit. You have to add a little bit more of a dynamic, not a club scene, It's a really cringe moment. Well, I think it's cringe anyway. Again, if you love this film, good luck to you. If you absolutely love it. I don't hate this film. It's just where I'm a Tekken fan. It's only because like I have passion and love for the game and this franchise that I just wanted so much more from it. But this really cringe moment where Jin's on TV fighting, they're filming it, and people in this bar just start chanting his name. It's so sort of, like, are we really doing this? Are we really chanting Jin? Are we really seeing random people just chant Jin's name? And it just feels all the time you are just watching random people dressed somewhat like Tekken characters. It just feels like a cosplay, like you're not getting anything else from this. During the opening monologue, Jin says Tekken is all about kill or be killed. Then Chrissy explains later it's not about killing. So it's like, well, what is it? Which one is it? You're going back on yourself. Like, what is the law here? There's loads of characters left out in this. Lee, Harang, no King, no Lei Wulong. And it was a real shame, like I say, with many computer adaptations, they would have just been a bit more true to the source material. And this has every potential to be a good movie. And whilst it's not an absolutely terrible bottom of the barrel, you just can't help but think, for me personally, it was a wasted opportunity. Again, no disregard to Jon Foo, no disregard to Dwight Little. I just think as a whole, the film just doesn't work. I just think, personally, it doesn't work. It's the kind of film, it is what it is. And whilst I can't recommend this film, I would go as far to say, if you are a die-hard Tekken fan, like you eat, live and breathe Tekken, you'll probably love this, and you might find some bits and pieces here and there that you enjoy. But to me personally, it was just okay. But let me know if you enjoyed this film. Like I say, if you do, good luck to you. But me personally, I just thought it was just a bit of a wasted opportunity. So hope you enjoyed the review.